My mom said you're not my daughter anymore, because I wouldn't give her money. Then 5 years later she was outside my mansion with a cardboard sign. If you believe in stories that matter, subscribe and support us. And please, leave a comment with your city or country. We enjoy learning about our viewers. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and my mother's name flashed across the screen for the 8th time that night. I was 23, working double shifts at County General as a nurse, my body aching from 12 straight hours on my feet. My studio apartment in Southeast DC smelled like instant ramen and exhaustion. I answered, "Bernice, baby, I need $500 right now." Her voice was slurred, background noise suggesting she wasn't calling from home. "Martin got arrested again and I got a post bail. You know how your brother is." My stomach dropped. This wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the 10th. Since I'd started working at 18, my mother, Denise, had treated my bank account like her personal ATM. Martin, my younger brother, had been in and out of trouble since high school, and somehow his mistakes always became my financial responsibility. "Mama, I just sent you $300 last week for your electric bill," I said, my voice cracking with exhaustion. "I'm barely making rent myself. I got student loans, car payments." "So you're telling me no?" Her tone shifted instantly from desperate to venomous. "After everything I did for you? I carried you for 9 months, raised you by myself when your daddy left. Fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head." The guilt trip was as familiar as breathing. But something in me, maybe it was the sleep deprivation, maybe it was seeing my checking account dip below $200, finally snapped. "I'm sorry, Mama. I just can't this time." The silence that followed was more terrifying than her yelling. "You're dead to me." Her words cut through the phone like glass. I could hear people laughing in the background, probably at whatever bar she'd found herself in. My hand trembled holding my Nokia, the blue screen light illuminating my dark apartment. Outside, sirens wailed through the DC streets, a soundtrack to my crumbling family. "Bernice, you hear me? You ain't my daughter no more." Denise's voice dripped with a coldness I'd never heard before, not even when Daddy left when I was 7. I got friends who'd give me the shirt off their back, but my own child? The one I sacrificed everything for? She too good to help her own mama. My throat tightened. "Mama, please, I'm not saying never. I'm saying not right now. I got $50 in my account until Friday." $50? She laughed bitterly. "You probably spending hundreds on your hair and nails, looking all cute for them doctors at the hospital, but your own brother sitting in a cell. Martin is 21. He made his choices. Don't you talk about your brother like that." The explosion made me pull the phone from my ear. "You always thought you was better than us ever since you went to that nursing program. Walking around with your scrubs and your attitude. Well, Miss High and Mighty, let me tell you something. You ain't nothing without family. No. You ain't got none." The line went dead. I sat in the darkness, my heart hammering against my ribs. 23 years of being the family's safety net, the responsible one, the smart daughter, who'd make something of herself and lift everyone up with her. And in one phone call it all shattered. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning. For 3 weeks I called. Every day. Morning, afternoon, night. Each call went straight to voicemail. "Mama, please pick up. Let's talk about this. I love you." My messages grew more desperate, my voice more broken. The silence was suffocating. My shift at County General became my refuge. Inserting IVs, monitoring vitals, holding patients' hands. These were problems I could solve. But every time I passed the nurse's station phone, I thought about calling home. My supervisor, Rita, a 50-something black woman with kind eyes and no-nonsense attitude, noticed. "Baby girl, you look like death warmed over. she said during our break, sliding a coffee across the table. What's going on? I broke. Told her everything. The late-night calls, the constant money requests, Martin's arrests, the disownment. Rita listened, her jaw tightening with each detail. How long she been doing this? Since I got my first paycheck at Foot Locker. I was 18. The admission felt shameful, like I was betraying family secrets. But she's my mama. She raised me alone. I owe her. Rita's eyes flashed. You don't owe nobody your financial destruction, Bernice. That's not love. That's manipulation. The word hung in the air like smoke. Manipulation. I'd never labeled it that way. It was just family, just what we did. You helped your people no matter what. That's what Denise had always taught me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My heart leaped. Maybe Mama got a new phone? Bernice? This is Aunt Carol. My mother's older sister. We'd barely spoken since I was a kid. Your mama's telling everyone you abandoned the family. Saying you're selfish, ungrateful. Carol's voice was tight. Is it true you refused to help Martin? The accusation felt like a slap. Within days, my phone became a weapon. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly had opinions. Text messages flooded in, each one a variation of disappointment and disgust. My Uncle Jerome, real family don't turn their back. Cousin Keisha, wow, nursing money got you acting brand new. Even my grandmother, Big Mama, left a voicemail that made my chest cave in. Baby, your mama crying every day. She don't understand how you could be so cold. I raised y'all better than this. Each message was a knife twist. I tried explaining, sent long texts about my own bills, my student loans from Howard University's nursing program, the reality of entry-level healthcare wages in 2018. Nobody wanted to hear it. The narrative was set. Bernice thought she was too good for her family now. Martin finally called from jail. Yo sis, that's fucked up. For real. Mama's out here struggling and you worried about some bills. His voice carried that familiar edge of entitlement, the same tone he used when he borrowed my car in high school and returned it with an empty tank and new scratches. Martin, you're 21. You got arrested for selling weed. How is that my emergency? 'Cause we're blood. You supposed to have my back. The call ended with him cursing me out. I sat on my bathroom floor, tiles cold against my legs, and cried until my eyes were swollen shut. This was my family. These were the people I'd worked my fingers to the bone for, skipped meals to send money to, canceled plans to accommodate. And I was the villain. At work, Rita found me in the supply closet trying to compose myself between patients. You still talking to them? They're my family. No, baby. Family builds you up. This is a demolition. 2 months later, my cousin Jasmine, the only one who hadn't joined the hate campaign, called. Unlike the others, Jazz and I had stayed close since childhood. She was studying business at Maryland, one of the few in our family pursuing education. Bernice, I got something to tell you and you're not gonna like it. Her voice was shaky. I was at Big Mama's yesterday. Your mama was there. She was bragging about playing you. My blood went cold. What? She was laughing, girl. Straight up laughing. Talking about how she didn't even really need the money for Martin's bail. His girlfriend's mama paid it. She wanted the money for herself, to go to Atlantic City with her new boyfriend, Terrell. Said you were always the easiest mark, that she just had to cry poor and you'd open your wallet. The room spun. My vision blurred. 4 years of sending money. Money for rent, utilities, groceries, Martin's various legal troubles, medical bills. Thousands of dollars. I'd eaten ramen and peanut butter sandwiches to afford those transfers. Skipped outings with friends. Wore scrubs with holes because I couldn't afford new ones. Jazz, you sure? I'm telling you, she said, Bernice always been soft. She can't stand to see me hurting. Then she laughed. Aunt Carol was there too, laughing right along. Big Mama looked uncomfortable but didn't say nothing. Jasmine's voice cracked. Sis, I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner, but I thought maybe it was just talk. But hearing her actually boast about manipulating you, that's sick. I couldn't breathe. The woman who'd given birth to me, who I'd worshipped despite everything, had been running a con. For years. And the family knew. They all knew. Thanks for telling me, Jazz. What are you gonna do? I don't know. But this is done. That night I did something I'd never done before. I went through my bank records. Every transaction, every transfer, every emergency, going back 4 years. The numbers made me physically sick. $28,400. Gone. To a woman who'd laughed about manipulating me. I made a spreadsheet. Documented everything. Dates, amounts, the supposed emergencies. March 2015, $600 for emergency dental work. April 2015, $450 for car repairs. July 2015, $800 for back rent. The pattern was undeniable. Sometimes the requests came twice a month. Sometimes 3 times. And I'd sent the money every single time, eating the overdraft fees, the late payment penalties on my own bills. My apartment felt different that night. Smaller somehow, but also lighter. Like I was seeing it clearly for the first time. The second-hand furniture I'd been too ashamed to have friends over to see. The empty fridge because I'd sent grocery money home. The walls I'd never decorated because I couldn't afford anything beyond surviving. I pulled out my journal, a habit Rita had encouraged to process the chaos. My hand moved across the page. I am not responsible for other people's choices. I'm not a bank. I am not a villain for having boundaries. The words felt revolutionary. My phone rang. Denise. For the first time since the disownment call, she was reaching out. My thumb hovered over the answer button. Every instinct screamed to pick up, to hear her voice, to maybe get the apology I desperately wanted. Instead I let it ring. And ring. And ring. When the voicemail notification appeared, I didn't listen. I blocked the number. Then I blocked Uncle Jerome, Cousin Keisha, even Big Mama. Everyone who'd participated in the guilt campaign, who'd made me feel small for having boundaries, who'd chosen her lie over my truth. Only Jazz remained unblocked. The silence that followed was deafening. But it was mine. The next 3 years were lonely but transformative. I threw myself into work with a focus that surprised even Rita. I picked up every extra shift, every holiday, every overtime opportunity. Where before I'd been working to survive and support others, now I worked to build something for myself. I enrolled in a nurse practitioner program at Georgetown, taking evening classes after brutal 12-hour shifts. My classmates went out for drinks. I went home to study. They complained about being tired. I stayed silent, pushing through exhaustion that lived in my bones. But every paper I wrote, every exam I aced felt like reclaiming myself. The emotional work was harder than the academic grind. Therapy, something I'd always dismissed as white people stuff, became my lifeline. Dr. Patterson, a black woman in her 60s who'd grown up in Southeast DC herself, didn't let me hide behind excuses. "You're still making yourself small," she said during one session. "Even without them in your life, you're apologizing for taking up space." He was right. I caught myself doing it constantly, apologizing to waiters when my order was wrong, minimizing my accomplishments at work, feeling guilty about every dollar I spent on myself. The programming ran deep. But slowly, painfully, I started to change. I bought new scrubs, nice ones that fit properly. I went to a real salon instead of doing my own hair in the bathroom. I started saying no at work when asked to cover someone else's shift. Each small act of self-respect felt like defiance against Denise's voice in my head, the one that said I was selfish for having needs. Jasmine became my anchor. She'd visit on weekends, bringing takeout and solidarity. "You look different," she said one Saturday, studying my face. "Lighter somehow." "I feel different," I admitted. "Scared but different." In 2021, everything accelerated. I graduated from the nurse practitioner program at the top of my class. The hospital offered me a position in their cardiology unit. A massive pay increase, real respect, actual weekends off. I moved out of that tiny studio in Southeast into a nice one-bedroom in Columbia Heights. It wasn't a mansion, but it had space and light and felt like mine. But the real shift came from a side project. During the pandemic, I'd started a medical education blog. Simple posts explaining health conditions in plain language, targeting underserved communities who struggled navigating healthcare. It was something I did at midnight after studying because I remembered what it felt like to be confused and scared in a hospital waiting room. The blog grew. 10 followers became 100. 100 became thousands. Then a pharmaceutical company reached out about consulting work. They wanted authentic voices to help develop patient education materials. The fee they offered was more than my monthly rent. I said yes. Then another company called. And another. Within 6 months, my consulting income exceeded my nursing salary. I was helping companies create better health resources while making real money. Money that was mine, that I'd earned through expertise and hard work. At 28, I hired a financial advisor. "Let's talk about investments," he said, pulling up spreadsheets. "With your income trajectory, you could retire early if you play this smart." Retire early. The word sounded like science fiction. People from Southeast DC didn't retire early. They worked until their bodies gave out, then worked some more. But here I was, discussing portfolio diversification and compound interest. I bought my first investment property, a small duplex in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Rented out both units. The passive income felt surreal. I paid off my student loans in one massive payment. The day I saw that zero balance, I cried in my car. I was building something Denise couldn't touch. And it felt powerful. By 2023, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The consulting work had evolved into a full-fledged business. I'd incorporated, hired contractors, developed online courses about health literacy that sold internationally. The nurse practitioner work continued, but I'd gone part-time, choosing my hours, maintaining connection to patient care while building my empire. The investment property multiplied. 1 duplex became 3. 3 became a small apartment building. My financial advisor, Robert, had stopped looking surprised during our quarterly meetings. "Bernice, you're building generational wealth," he said, highlighting numbers that made my head spin. "At this rate, you'll be a millionaire by 32. I'd started dating. Something I'd avoided during the grinding years, too raw and exhausted for vulnerability. Martin, a software engineer I'd met at a networking event, was patient and kind. Our third date, I told him everything about my family. He listened without judgment. "That's heavy," he said, reaching for my hand. "But look at you now. You turned pain into purpose." Purpose. Yes. That's exactly what it was. Every success felt like proof. Proof I wasn't the selfish daughter. Proof I wasn't cold-hearted. Proof that boundaries didn't make you a villain. They made you free. Jasmine finished her MBA and joined my company as CEO. Working together felt full circle, like the family we'd chosen was stronger than the one we'd been given. She was there the day we signed papers on a commercial property. A real office, not my apartment dining table. "Remember when we were kids talking about owning businesses?" she said, champagne in hand. "Remember when I was eating ramen in that studio, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. We laughed, but it wasn't funny. It was survival that had somehow transformed into success. And I was only getting started. Then my real estate agent called with an opportunity that would change everything. "I know it's a reach," Karen said, pulling up the listing on her iPad. "But hear me out. This property in Potomac, it's been on the market 8 months. The seller's desperate. With your portfolio and cash reserves, you could negotiate a deal." The photos took my breath away. A 6-bedroom estate on 2 acres, floor-to-ceiling windows, a chef's kitchen, a master suite bigger than my first apartment. The kind of house I'd cleaned as a teenager working for a housekeeping service, never imagining I'd own one. "Karen, that's a $6 million house. Listed at 6. We could probably get it for 4.8. You've got the down payment. Your credit's perfect. Your business income alone could carry the mortgage. 4.8 million. The number was absurd. But as I scrolled through the photos, something clicked. This wasn't about needing more space. It was about claiming something impossible. About standing in a house that screamed success and knowing I'd earned every square foot. We made an offer. They countered. We negotiated. 3 weeks later, I signed closing papers, my hand shaking slightly as I wrote my name on documents that transferred ownership of a mansion to me. Bernice Marie Thompson. The girl from Southeast DC who'd been disowned for having $50 in her checking account now owned a mansion in Potomac. Moving day felt surreal. Professional movers carried my furniture. Real furniture, not second-hand finds. Into rooms that echoed with possibility. Martin, the boyfriend, helped unpack, making jokes about getting lost in the house. Jazz brought champagne and tears. "We made it," she whispered, standing in the foyer where a crystal chandelier caught the afternoon light. "We made it," I echoed. That night, alone in my massive bedroom, I opened Instagram. Posted a photo of the sunset view from my terrace. Didn't tag the location. Didn't caption it with humble brags. Just posted proof that I existed in this success. 20 minutes later, a message request appeared. Unknown account. The profile picture made my stomach drop. It was Denise. The message was brief. "We need to talk. It's important. Your brother's in trouble." I stared at the words. 5 years of silence reduced to a manipulation tactic so familiar it could have been copy-pasted from 2018. My therapist's voice echoed in my head. "When they return, and they will return, they'll come because they need something, not because they realized what they lost." I didn't respond. Blocked the account. But the intrusion shattered my peace. That night I couldn't sleep, tossing in my California king while memories played on loop. Her voice saying, "You're dead to me." Her laughter, according to Jazz, as she bragged about playing me. The years of manipulation wrapped in maternal obligation. The next morning I left for my hospital shift at 6 a.m. The drive from Potomac to the clinic was 40 minutes of meditation time, watching the sunrise over the Potomac River. But as I turned onto my street, approaching my gate, something made me brake hard. A woman sat on the curb across from my entrance. 50s, worn clothes, stringy hair. She held a cardboard sign, the words visible even from 30 feet away. "Help a mother in need." My blood turned to ice. Because I knew that face. Aged, weathered, harder than I remembered, but unmistakable. Denise. My mother. Outside my house. With a fucking sign. Our eyes met through the windscreen. Recognition flashed across her face, followed by something calculating. She stood, sign held high, and started walking toward my car. Years of therapy, of healing, of building boundaries. All of it crumbled in an instant as instinct took over. I accelerated through my gate, the automatic sensor closing it behind me just as she reached the curb. In my rearview mirror, I watched her pound on the iron bars, mouth moving in words I couldn't hear. My hands shook so violently I could barely grip the steering wheel. Inside my garage, I sat in darkness, hyperventilating. She'd found me. Somehow she'd found me. And she wasn't leaving. For 3 days, Denise camped outside my gate. Different signs, same message. My daughter abandoned me. Success shouldn't mean forgetting your mother. Please help a struggling Neighbors in our wealthy, quiet community started noticing. My doorbell camera caught her approaching visitors, telling her story. A story where she was the victim and I was the cold-hearted daughter who'd made it big and left her to suffer. Mrs. Ellison from 2 houses down actually rang my doorbell. "Dear, there's a woman outside claiming to be your mother. She says you won't help her. Is everything all right?" The shame was instantaneous, that old programming kicking in. Explain yourself. Justify your boundaries. Make them understand. But then I remembered, I didn't owe anyone my trauma as entertainment. "It's handled, Mrs. Ellison. Thank you for your concern." I called my lawyer, David, who I'd retained when my business took off. "We're looking at harassment, possibly trespassing if she steps on your property. I can send a cease and desist, but honestly that might escalate things. What's your goal here?" My goal. What was my goal? To make her leave? To make her understand what she'd done? To get an apology? 5 years ago I would have known the answer. Now, sitting in my home office overlooking perfectly manicured grounds, I felt something different. Bigger. Pure righteous anger. My goal is to confront her. On my terms. Jess came over that evening, Martin too. We watched Denise through the camera feed, her new sign reading, "Blood is thicker than money." The audacity was breathtaking. "You don't have to talk to her," Martin said, his arm around my shoulders. "I know. But I think I want to. Not for her. For me. To close this chapter completely." Jess squeezed my hand. "Then we'll be right here." At 7 p.m. I walked out my front door. Crossed my circular driveway. Approached the gate where my mother waited. She stood immediately, tears streaming down her face. Real tears, probably. She'd always been a gifted crier. "Bernice, baby, thank God. I knew you'd." "Stop." The word came out harder than I intended. She froze. "You don't get to do this," I said, my voice steady despite my hammering heart. "You don't get to show up here after 5 years with your signs and your performance and expect me to open this gate." Denise's tears intensified. "Baby, please, I'm your mother. I'm struggling. Martin got arrested again. I lost my apartment. I got nowhere to go. You got all this," she gestured at the mansion, "and I'm out here with nothing. How can you be so cold?" Cold. The word tasted like poison. "You disowned me for having $50 in my checking account. You told the entire family I abandoned you. And Jess told me the truth. You were bragging about manipulating me, laughing about how easy I was to play. So don't you dare call me cold." Her face shifted, the tears stopping like a faucet turned off. There it was, the real Denise, the one without the mask. Jasmine's a liar. She always been jealous of our relationship. $28,400. I pulled out my phone, showed her the spreadsheet I'd never deleted. "That's what you took from me over 4 years. Money I needed for rent, food, my education. Money you spent on Atlantic City and whatever else while I was eating ramen and wearing scrubs with holes. You didn't just steal my money, Mama. You stole my ability to trust, to feel safe, to believe family meant something." For the first time she had no response. The silence stretched, broken only by evening crickets and distant traffic. "I built this," I continued, gesturing at the house behind me. "Not for you. Not despite you. I built it because I learned what I was capable of when I stopped making myself small to accommodate your dysfunction. You didn't just lose a daughter 5 years ago. You lost someone who would have done anything for you. And that's on you. So that's it. You're just gonna leave me out here. You left me first. You just didn't expect me to be okay without you. I turned toward my house, then looked back. Get help, Mama. Real help. Not money. Therapy. Treatment. Whatever you need to figure out why you hurt the people who love you. But you won't find it here. This gate stays closed. I walked away as she screamed obscenities behind me. Inside, Jazz and Martin wrapped me in their arms while I sobbed. Not from sadness but from release. The next morning, Denise was gone. My lawyer's cease and desist had been delivered overnight. I never saw her again. 5 years later, I'm 37. My business has expanded internationally. The mansion isn't just a house. It's a home filled with chosen family, with Jazz's kids running through the rooms, with Martin proposing on the same terrace where I'd once posted that sunset. Sometimes I still think about that phone call, the one that ended everything. And I'm grateful. Because being disowned was the best thing Denise ever did for me. It forced me to choose myself. And that choice led here. To a life built on my terms, with boundaries that protect rather than constrain, with a family I chose rather than one that demanded my destruction as proof of loyalty. The gate stays closed. And I stay free.